In this presentation, I will discuss key peer-reviewed and mainstream publications that focus on post-secondary education, as well as professional and institutional associations. This content will help you, hopefully, to identify resources that can be used in dissertation literature reviews on studies that pertain to post-secondary education, and also the content will hopefully help you as a higher education administrator get resources to stay current on knowledge in the field. Okay, so to begin, I want to just highlight some of the key journals in the field of higher education. On the screen is a table from an article you should have read by Brian Major discussing results from a study of higher education faculty about the journals that they believe are most primary to the field. I'm not going to summarize the results of this study. You can read it yourself, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Instead, I'm going to provide some supplemental information to you about a few of the publications they identified. First of all, the New Direction series. So this is a number of different editorially reviewed journals, all of which are published by Jossie Bass, and they have different content foci. So there's New Directions for higher education generally, and then specific to institutional research, to student services, to community colleges, as well as to adult and continuing education. The reason why I really like this series is actually twofold. First of all, each article in any given issue is written in a very accessible way to both inform researchers as well as practitioners. So I like the style of the writing of these different journals. And then also, I think what's really nice is that each one has an editorially reviewed thematic issue. So any given quarter, the topic will change. For instance, former editions have focused on codes of conduct in academia, mentoring, exploring diversity at HBCUs, exploring student identity development, issues in distance education, issues in doctoral education, intellectual property, faculty rights, the public good, etc. So I encourage you, especially if you're working or doing a problem of practice in any of these specific areas, such as institutional research, student services, or community colleges, to go check out some of the issues and see whether or not any recent ones align with your topical area of focus. The second thing I want to highlight related to major journals in the field are those that I usually start with when I'm doing a literature review. So I'll often do a Google Scholar search or look in the ASU library databases, but I will also always go to the individual pages of these particular journals and search for any articles on my topic of interest. And those journals are the Journal of Higher Education, Review of Higher Education, Research in Higher Education, and Higher Education. So the Journal of Higher Education and Review of Higher Education are both affiliated with ASH, the Association for the Study of Higher Education, and Research in Higher Education is affiliated with AIR, which I'll talk about in a second, which is the Professional Association for Higher Ed Institutional Researchers. Those primarily publish articles on topics and issues in the United States, and Research in Higher Education especially publishes quantitative manuscripts. The other two publish both qual, quant, and mixed methods more frequently. Then Higher Education is an international journal, and so although it's published in English, there's a lot more on comparative and international issues. So if that's what your focus is, I highly encourage you to check out Higher Education especially. But those four publications are especially central and publish especially high quality information in the field. And so I always will go to those separately from doing a more broad search in one of the educational databases. Another important external source of information about research and knowledge on higher education are major editorially and non-peer-reviewed publications. So you shouldn't primarily rely on these for your dissertation literature review or any other academic manuscript that you want to publish in a journal, but as an administrator, these are great sources of information about what's going on in current research and practice. So the first two sources I go to almost every day are Inside Higher Ed and the Chronicle of Higher Education. So Inside Higher Ed, all of the articles are available for free, and the Chronicle does have paywall where subscriptions are required, but anyone with an asu.edu email address can register for free access to all Chronicle articles. So I highly encourage you to do that if you haven't already. So those two are great sources of contemporary news on research and trends in higher ed. Other sources of editorially reviewed publications that I often use are Academe, which is published by the American Association of University Professors and especially focuses on topics relevant to faculty. And then Change is another magazine type publication that's published 6 times a year, and it deals with information on higher ed and issues on higher ed, basically focused on things that are important for leaders in colleges and universities, as well as those in other settings who have a stake in higher education. So faculty, administrators, trustees, state and federal officials, foundation officers, etc. Both Academe and Change are available through ASU's online library. So I highly encourage you to check out these publications as well, more in terms of informing your practice in an ongoing way. Another great way to stay current on knowledge in the field is to be involved in and monitor what's going on in key professional associations in higher education. So I've already mentioned ASH, the Association for the Study of Higher Education, and AERA's Division J, both of which are the key associations for post-secondary researchers and scholars. The Association for Institutional Research, AIR, is another important organization, and as I mentioned previously, they publish the journal Research in Higher Education. More from a practitioner standpoint are associations such as ACPA and NASPA, which are particular to student services administrators. There are also in sort of more niche professional organizations like the Association of College Registrars, which is the main enrollment management professional organization, and also the NACUBA organization for business officers, and there are a number of different other particular professional organizations depending on your area of focus, advising, residential life, etc. Oftentimes, too, most of these organizations have state or region level divisions. In terms of also for faculty, the Association for University Professors, the AAUP, is a very important and engaged organization in that realm. So I highly encourage you to check out the websites of some of these organizations or whichever is most aligned with your particular area of professional expertise. The associations I just discussed in the previous slide are intended for individual professionals and practitioners, so you as an individual would join them. There's another group of important associations in post-secondary education in the United States, and these are institutional associations. So basically, they're collectives of different colleges and universities that join based on similar interests that they share in common or similar features that they have in common. And essentially, these organizations are coordinating bodies, they're lobbying bodies, and they do quite a bit in terms of advocating at the national level for their membership. But they're also really great sources of research and information as well. So the ACE, the American Council on Education, is basically the major coordinating body for all of the nation's colleges and universities. They represent over 1,800 college and universities and all different types. Then there are more specific organizations that are subsets of the population of colleges and universities. So for instance, the AAC&U, American Association of Colleges and Universities, is especially concerned with undergraduate liberal education. And I did a number of research projects for them. Their website has a lot of great resources of white papers and different studies based on or focused on undergraduate liberal arts and liberal education. So if that's one of your interests, I highly encourage you to check out their website. The Association of American Universities is a more elite organization. So they only have 60-some members, and they are especially focused on research universities and supporting federal funding and federal research at the university level. So if you're interested in research and research policy, they're a great organization to check out. The Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities, I'm highlighting this because this is an association of which Arizona State University is a member, and they're really dedicated to public higher education, advancing the work of public universities. And then finally, the American Association of Community Colleges is, sort of obviously, an advocacy organization for almost 1,200 two-year associate's degree granting institutions. So again, all of these organizations and others, so there are some that are focused on religiously affiliated institutions, some that are focused on minority serving institutions. All of these organizations have great information on their websites, particular to their different institution types. So again, I highly encourage you to identify those that might be relevant to your own work and check out the information they have available. I do want to note that these are different from institutional associations that are organized around sports. So the Ivy League, for instance, the Pac-12, the Big Ten, those organizations or those groups of universities and colleges are formed around the basis of college sports competition, although they do often have academic partnerships as well. But these institutional organizations or associations are more general for the institution's research and teaching. So one of the primary purposes of introducing you to these different sources of information is to help you with your dissertation and to find information relevant to your topic of interest. However, I also want to encourage you to use these sources in an ongoing way to stay current on what's going on in the field. So especially, although you have very busy day jobs and you're not going to be able to have time to be extensively reading journals every day, still I highly encourage you to monitor the publications at least. So each of the journals that I've mentioned in this presentation have free table of contents emails. And this is something that I do. I go to their website and subscribe to their free table of contents updates. So then I look through every month those emails, and if there seems to be an article that was just published that's of interest to me, then I'll go to their website and read it. But at least then I'm monitoring what's being published in the key journals in our field and kind of the topics that researchers are focusing on. Or you can follow the journals on social media as well instead of doing the table of contents updates. I'm not very good with social media, so I do the email table of content updates. But I highly encourage you to sign up for some of those emails. In addition, certainly, you don't probably have time to be reading the Chronicle of Higher Education and Inside Higher Ed every day, but if you can just scan the headlines, that's a smart way to be able to monitor really what's going on in the field and current issues related to your practice. In addition, certainly attending meetings of professional associations whenever possible, and especially I encourage you to think about where you might be able to present your dissertation results, which professional association meetings might be most aligned with that. So that's wonderful, a wonderful way not just to learn more about what's going on in the field, but also to network with other administrators and researchers with shared interests. And then finally, again, I'm not very good at social media, but a number of my colleagues use Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook extensively to stay current on what others are engaged in. And so I also, if you're using social media, if you're an active social media user, I encourage you, as you're reading through different articles, if there are certain scholars that you find especially informative or useful or interesting to your own topics and of interest and administrative practice, I highly encourage you to follow them on social media as well.